Hi guys, I'm back again today with another video, and today we're checking out the Shenzhen Shenzhen. I don't know how it's pronounced, so we will hear it. Area explained. So before we start, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's begin.
When it comes to international borders, for most countries, they are hard barriers separating people, cultures, money, languages, driving sides, and more, not to mention all the special documentation you will need just to cross that line. However, in Europe, something somewhat mind blowing has been established borders that you can just stroll right across. What? How? Yep, those exist. This video was brought to you in part by Atlas En Route and from generous support on Patreon from viewers like you. Thank you. This such freedom of travel is essentially unique to most but not all of the countries of the European Union. France, Germany, Benelux, Italy, Spain, and several others have agreed to essentially abolish the borders between them and let people move around as they please. This is an area called the Schengen area, and it can be somewhat mind-blowing.
Schengen. Okay, there we go. I was saying it wrong all my whole life, because I was taught it wrong, I guess, in school.
As they please. This is an area called the Schengen area, and it can be somewhat mind-blowing to outsiders, and is also the reason why I have so many Europeans in the comments of my passports video bragging about visiting 20 countries without a passport. How is this possible? Well, it is doubtful that this would be possible in any random collection of nations, but the EU is different, because one of the most basic agreements of being an EU member nation is freedom of movement. If you are a citizen of an EU member state, you're basically by extension an EU citizen, which means that Germans can move to Spain, Portuguese can work in the Netherlands, and Brits can of course insert Brexit joke here. With this in mind, this would explain how the visa policy of the area works. Since people, including visiting foreigners, can freely move into any country they want to, no Schengen area country has their own visa policy. Instead, the countries of the Schengen area all have to agree on one single collective visa policy. Thus, the Schengen area may seem to resemble one single country on visa policy maps. As for these intents and purposes, it kind of sort of is. After all, crossing from Spain into France is logistically just like crossing from Oregon into California. Of course, now's the time for me to clarify the at least hopefully obvious, which is that, yes, you do still need a passport to get into or out of the Schengen area. So if you fly from London to Berlin, you will still be stopped and questioned by immigration personnel, and if they see you fit to enter, they will give you their local version of the Schengen stamp, assuming you're from one of the countries in green. The Schengen area consists of 22 of the 28 member states of the EU, the exceptions being the UK and Ireland, who have a permanent opt-out as they argue that islands are different, and Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Cyprus, as they basically just haven't gotten around to it yet. However, there are actually 26 nations participating in Schengen. As for non-EU nations, Iceland, Norway, Switzerland, and Liechtenstein have also decided to hop on, as well as Monaco, San Marino, and Vatican City, who aren't formally part of this agreement, but at the same time, come on. Somewhat interestingly though, Croatia, Romania, Bulgaria, and Cyprus, despite not currently being in the Schengen area, are obliged to follow the same visa policy for foreign nationals as the other states, as they don't have opt-outs and are of course obligated to join sometime in the future. It should be noted, however, that while Norway, Iceland, and Liechtenstein are part of the European Economic Area, and thus their citizens can live and work in the EU and vice versa, this is not the same with Switzerland and the microstates. Thus, non-Swiss can visit but not live in Switzerland. Switzerland, Norway, and Iceland are also not part of the European Customs Union, which means that, crossing the German-Swiss border, you won't be stopped for immigration purposes, but you will likely have to declare any regulated goods. Weirdly, this is actually the reverse with some non-Schengen states, notably the UK and Turkey. Remember, customs and immigration are different things. Immigration is where you get your passport stamped, and customs is where you declare goods. For a good rule of thumb, immigration is for people, and customs is for what the people are bringing with them. Also, perhaps it should be noted that Andorra does not participate in Schengen despite its small size. The Schengen Agreement was established on the 14th of June 1985 in the Luxembourgish town of Schengen, which, judging from this video script, was really put on the map by this agreement, with the first 5 member states being Germany, France, Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. This bloc has since grown, now encompassing a population of 400 million people, and of those 400 million people, roughly 1.7 million cross an international border every day, responsible for billions of euros in trade every year. Some people even wake up in one country and make breakfast in the other, especially in places like Barle-Nassau in the Netherlands and Barle-Hertog in Belgium. Normally, such a scenario would be a complete mess. But in the Schengen area, things like these are kind of perfectly fine, which is nice because this area is also a pretty cool place to go to as a border-obsessed tourist. However, there is still some regulation within the Schengen area. While there will never be border checks for someone taking a train from Stettin to Berlin or their following flight to Madrid, police can still ask them for identification at different points. Member nations are also allowed to reintroduce border checks temporarily along certain sections of their borders with other Schengen states, provided it's for an emergency. Currently, Austria, Denmark, Germany, Norway, and Sweden have temporarily reintroduced border checks in response to the European migrant crisis, and France due to persistent terror threats. However, not all of these have been due to an emergency, as Malta has done this in 2010 when Pope Benedict XVI came for a visit, and in 2015 for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And Estonia has also done so in 2014 when US President Barack Obama visited. Weirdly, some Schengen states actually have territories outside the Schengen area. The Danish possessions of the Faroe Islands and Greenland, as well as Norway's visa-free Svalbard, and all of France's overseas territories are all exceptions to this rule. Though this doesn't mean you necessarily have to get your passport stamped when you fly from, say, Paris to Guadeloupe. However, these far-flung territories might not accept visas for their mainland counterparts, so always be sure to check the visa requirements before traveling. Granted, that's kind of good advice for anywhere, especially with bringing your passport. I realized that the previous point about external territories sometimes not requiring passport checks was a bit vague, but that's because it varies a lot. So when in doubt, just bring your
Your
passport
passport.
anyway. So yeah, that's
Yeah,
basically.
because this happened, I think, like recently also, wherein I don't know the whole like history about it, but some like people were traveling out of America into like American territory, so they didn't need a passport, like somewhere in South America, I think. I don't remember. But then the plane had to land somewhere else where they needed passports. So now they can't get out, they can't go to America because they don't have their passports. Because they were traveling with like just IDs, right? But not passport. And because they thought it was just like US to whatever country, and then from that country back to the states, but then they didn't know they were going to get stuck in another country, so then they cannot do anything. Like I think the only thing they can do is like somebody sends their passports and then they can book flights out of that country. It was like complicated. So yeah, it's very essential to always have your passport in these circumstances either way, because like especially for tourists, right? Because you never know, somebody might be like, excuse me, do you have your passport? Can I see an identification? Are you allowed here? Right, so it's like you're just walking, let's say in Luxembourg, and then you end in France and you're like, oh shit, right? But anyways, this is fascinating. So I like that they explained it. I think I knew ish uh how it was done. And yeah, I've always wanted a Shen. How do you say it again? Because I've always learned or said it. I don't know why we kind of like made it a very let me see, a very Chinese word. I don't know why. At least from my understanding, we always said Shenzhen. And that is a very Chinese way of pronouncing a word. I don't know why we did that. It's Shenzhen, I think. It's how you, I don't know how you say it. But anyways, beautiful people. Yeah, fascinating. I think it's harder obviously to get that type of visa for us here in the Philippines, because it's like 20 plus countries, right? Under one visa. So it's very like it's really hard to apply for it. It's really hard to apply for it. But hey, you know what? Maybe one day we can try if we have the funds. But anyways, beautiful people, thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.